Andre Harris was a man of principle, a 44-year-old sheriff whose life revolved around his unwavering commitment to justice and family. Respected in his community for his integrity and calm leadership, Andre took great pride in the life he had built. At the center of it all was Jasmine, the woman he married 15 years ago and the mother of his 4 children. Their love story began when Andre was a young deputy, eager to make a difference in the world, and Jasmine was volunteering at a community event. She was magnetic, with a smile that could light up a room, and Andre, typically reserved, found himself captivated by her warmth and charm. Jasmine, 39, had grown up in the same city as Andre, but their paths hadn't crossed until that fateful day, at least that's what Andre thought. In truth, Jasmine had a history that predated their relationship, a link to someone Andre held close, his younger brother, Tyrone. Tyrone Harris, 41, was the opposite of Andre in many ways. While Andre was steady, disciplined, and focused, Tyrone was impulsive, charming, and carefree. He had always been the golden boy, the one who could make anyone laugh, talk his way out of trouble, and leave a lasting impression wherever he went. But his charm often masked a deep insecurity, a feeling that he was constantly living in Andre's shadow. While Andre had built a successful career and started a family, Tyrone's life had been a series of starts and stops, failed relationships, odd jobs, and a restless pursuit of something he could never quite name. Jasmine had known Tyrone long before she ever met Andre. They had attended the same high school, though their social circles rarely overlapped. Jasmine, quiet and studious, had admired Tyrone from afar. He was everything she wasn't, popular, confident, and seemingly untouchable. Like many others, she had fallen for his easy charm, though he barely noticed her. Years later, when Andre brought her home to meet his family after they started dating, she was shocked to realize that Andre's younger brother was the same Tyrone she had spent years secretly crushing on. Andre introduced them with pride, oblivious to the flicker of recognition in Jasmine's eyes or the spark of amusement in Tyrone's. To Andre, family was everything, and bringing Jasmine into the fold was a way of solidifying the future he envisioned for them. Tyrone, always quick to capitalize on an opportunity, played the role of the supportive younger brother, welcoming Jasmine with open arms. The connection between Jasmine and Tyrone was almost instantaneous, though they kept it hidden from Andre. Their shared history became a private bond, something they could talk about in quiet moments that Andre would never suspect. The affair didn't start immediately, but the foundation was laid in those early days. Tyrone visited often, his charm and humor making him a favorite among the family. Jasmine, feeling the weight of Andre's demanding job and growing emotional distance, found herself drawn to Tyrone's attention. He noticed things Andre didn't, the way she styled her hair, the effort she put into preparing meals, the moments when she seemed overwhelmed but tried to hide it. For Jasmine, it felt like someone finally saw her again. The first step across the line happened a year after Andre and Jasmine's wedding. Tyrone had come over to help with a repair project while Andre was working late. They talked and laughed as they worked, reminiscing about high school teachers and shared memories. When Tyrone leaned in closer, his hand brushing against hers, Jasmine didn't move away. It was a fleeting moment, but it opened the door to something neither of them could undo. For Tyrone, the affair was as much about desire as it was about rivalry. He had always envied Andre, his discipline, his success, his ability to build a life that seemed so stable and complete. Taking something that belonged to Andre felt like a twisted form of victory, a way to claim a piece of the life he believed should have been his. Jasmine, for her part, justified the betrayal as filling a void that Andre had left unaddressed, though the guilt lingered in quiet moments when she was alone. Their secret relationship began in earnest, woven into the fabric of family gatherings, casual visits, and shared moments that Andre never thought to question. The affair overlapped with the early years of Jasmine and Andre's marriage, a period during which 3 of their 4 children were conceived. While Andre worked tirelessly to provide for his growing family, Tyrone and Jasmine carried on their betrayal, convinced that their secret would never come to light. Andre, devoted to his family and his work, never suspected the cracks forming beneath the surface of his seemingly perfect life. He adored his children. Malik, the responsible and mature eldest, Jaden, the playful and curious middle child, Cameron, the quiet and thoughtful observer, and Alaya, the youngest and only daughter, whose innocence and joy lit up the household. To Andre, his family was everything, the anchor that kept him grounded in the chaos of his demanding career. He had no idea that the foundation of that family was built on a lie, one that would eventually come to destroy everything he held dear. The affair between Jasmine and Tyrone began as an unexpected connection reignited from their high school years, but it quickly spiraled into something far more intense. In the early days, their interactions were subtle, lingering looks, a brush of hands when no one was watching, and stolen conversations that carried a spark neither of them could ignore. What started as innocent nostalgia for their shared past became a dangerous web of desire and deceit, entwining their lives in ways they hadn't anticipated. The first time they crossed the line, it felt electric, almost inevitable. Tyrone had come over while Andre was working late, an all-too-common occurrence given Andre's demanding schedule as a sheriff. Jasmine had asked for help with a household repair, and Tyrone, ever the charmer, was happy to oblige. Their laughter as they reminisced about high school memories turned into something deeper when Jasmine brushed past him in the narrow hallway. Tyrone, emboldened by the moment, leaned in for a kiss. Jasmine didn't resist. That single act set the tone for what would become years of secret meetings and shared betrayals. As the affair progressed, they became masters at hiding their relationship from Andre. They were careful, always making sure their stolen moments were well-timed. Family gatherings became opportunities for whispered conversations and fleeting touches when no one else was looking. Tyrone would offer to babysit the kids while Jasmine ran errands, a perfect excuse to spend time alone together. Their shared history gave them a natural cover. After all, it wasn't unusual for in-laws to bond over their past. Andre never thought to question it. Tyrone often found himself conflicted about the affair, particularly in the beginning. He knew it was wrong, not just because Jasmine was married, but because she was married to his brother. The weight of that betrayal sat heavy on his chest, but every time he thought about ending it, Jasmine's presence would pull him back. Her attention, her touch, it all filled a void in Tyrone's life, a sense of worth he had never quite achieved on his own. Jasmine, for her part, was equally torn. She loved her family and cared deeply for Andre, but Tyrone made her feel seen and desired in ways she hadn't experienced in years. One of the most intoxicating aspects of their relationship was Jasmine's ability to make Tyrone feel powerless in the best way. Her confidence, especially in their intimate moments, was something Tyrone couldn't resist. Jasmine had a way of making him feel as though he was the center of her universe, and her skill in the bedroom was unmatched. She knew exactly how to keep him coming back, her mastery of fellatio leaving him breathless and addicted. Even when Tyrone tried to pull away, convinced he needed to stop before they got caught, the memory of her touch, her lips, and the way she made him feel would draw him back in. Their passion for each other wasn't just physical, it was laced with danger, guilt, and the thrill of the forbidden. It was this mix of emotions that made their connection so intense and so difficult to break. Jasmine knew exactly how to keep Tyrone entangled, offering just enough affection to make him feel needed without demanding too much in return. Tyrone, for all his charm and bravado, was powerless to resist. He hated himself for it, but he hated the idea of letting her go even more. The secrecy of their affair added to its intensity. Every stolen kiss, every whispered word felt magnified by the risk they were taking. They developed elaborate ways to communicate without raising suspicion. Tyrone would send Jasmine innocuous text messages disguised as conversations about family matters. Jasmine would arrange errands that conveniently placed her near Tyrone's apartment or job, ensuring they could steal moments together without being noticed. Even in the Harris household, they found ways to hide in plain sight, using family gatherings and casual visits as cover for their stolen intimacy. For years, they managed to keep the affair hidden. To Andre, the bond between Jasmine and Tyrone seemed like a natural extension of their family dynamic. He never questioned Tyrone's frequent visits or the way Jasmine's mood seemed to lift whenever Tyrone was around. He was too focused on providing for his family, too trusting of the people he loved most to see the truth unfolding right in front of him. But secrets have a way of surfacing, no matter how carefully they're buried. Jasmine and Tyrone's affair, built on passion, betrayal, and lies, was bound to unravel. The deeper they fell into their secret world, the more precarious their situation became. Every stolen moment carried the risk of discovery, and every whisper of guilt hinted at the storm that was coming. For years, André remained blissfully unaware of the betrayal unfolding in his own home. He took pride in his family, adoring each of his children and cherishing the life he believed they had built together. But everything changed one afternoon when Jasmine, in what seemed like a casual comment, mentioned how much Jaden's smile reminded her of Tyrone's. The remark, though innocent on the surface, struck a chord deep within André. He brushed it off at first, but the thought lingered, gnawing at the back of his mind. Questions began to form, small, unsettling doubts that he couldn't shake. Unable to ignore the unease, André decided to put his concerns to rest once and for all. But the path to confirming his worst fears wasn't easy. He spent days researching how to conduct a DNA test discreetly, not wanting to arouse Jasmine's suspicion. His hands trembled as he placed the order for the home DNA kit online, using an alternate delivery address to keep it hidden from his family. When the kit arrived, André hid it carefully in his car, waiting for the right moment to collect the samples he needed. André planned meticulously, taking time to ensure his actions wouldn't be noticed. Late one night, while the children were asleep and Jasmine was in the shower, he crept into their rooms. From Malik's desk, he grabbed a used pencil with faint teeth marks on the eraser. Jaden's bedside table provided a partially chewed straw from a juice box, and Cameron's laundry basket held a discarded sock he could use. For Alea, he carefully picked a strand of hair from her brush, whispering an apology to himself as he did so. Each item was sealed in a plastic bag, labeled, and tucked away in the kit. The final piece of the puzzle was his own DNA sample. Sitting alone in his car late that night, André swabbed his cheek, following the kit's instructions with grim determination. As he sealed the swab and placed it with the others, a wave of nausea rolled over him. What was he doing? The very act of collecting these samples felt like a betrayal of his family, a violation of the trust he had worked so hard to build. But the doubts had taken root too deeply to ignore. When he mailed the samples off the next morning, André couldn't shake the knot in his stomach. He told himself it was nothing, that he would receive the results in a few weeks, laugh at his foolishness, and put the matter to rest. But as the days dragged on, his anxiety grew. He became more watchful, scrutinizing every interaction between Jasmine and Tyrone, every glance, every laugh, every shared moment. The thought of them together in ways he couldn't bear to imagine haunted him. When the results finally arrived, André opened the envelope with trembling hands. The words stared back at him like a death sentence: Malik, Jaden, and Cameron were not biologically his. Only Alea, his youngest, carried his DNA. The paper fell from his hands as the room seemed to close in around him. Rage, betrayal, and devastation collided in his mind, leaving him with only one thought: he needed answers. The moment André processed the damning evidence, a rage like he had never known overtook him. The family he had devoted his life to, the children he had loved unconditionally, were the result of a betrayal so deep it made his blood boil. He didn't stop to think. He didn't pause to plan. With the DNA results clutched in his shaking hands, he drove home in a blur, his mind spinning with accusations and fury. André burst through the front door, calling out for Jasmine, his voice echoing through the house like a thunderclap. There was no answer, only a chilling silence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. He climbed the stairs two at a time, his heart pounding in his chest. When he reached their bedroom, he froze. There, on the bed they had shared for years, were Jasmine and Tyrone, caught in the throes of their affair. The betrayal he had just uncovered in black and white DNA evidence now played out in vivid, undeniable reality before his eyes. Jasmine's face turned pale as she saw André standing in the doorway, the rage etched into every line of his expression. Tyrone, ever the smooth talker, tried to speak, but André didn't give him the chance. In a blind fury, André reached for the firearm he carried as part of his duty as a sheriff. The years of deceit, the lies, and the image of his children, all of it boiled over in a moment of uncontrollable rage. Without hesitation, he fired. The first shot hit Tyrone square in the chest, silencing his brother's arrogant smirk forever. Jasmine screamed, her hands flying up as if to shield herself from the truth that was now unavoidable. A second shot rang out, and she fell silent, collapsing onto the bed where her betrayal had been laid bare. The room fell into a deafening quiet, broken only by the sound of André's heavy breathing as he stood over their lifeless bodies. The weight of what he had done began to settle over him like a dark cloud, but in that moment, all he could feel was the crushing devastation of a life built on lies. His world, once so carefully constructed, lay in ruins, with the truth exposed in the most horrifying way possible. The first shot echoed through the house, followed immediately by the second. The sound was deafening, shattering the silence of the evening like a clap of thunder. The Harris children, nestled in their rooms, froze at the noise. It took only seconds for the realization to set in, something was terribly wrong. Malik, the eldest at 14, was the first to react, bolting out of his room and down the hallway. Behind him, Jaden and Cameron emerged, their faces pale with fear. Little Alaya, just 5 years old, sat frozen on her bed, clutching a stuffed bear as the sound of her siblings' frantic voices filled the house. "Mom! Dad!" Malik shouted, his voice cracking as he rushed toward the master bedroom. Jaden tried to hold him back, pleading, "Don't go," but Malik shrugged him off, determined to find out what had happened. Cameron lingered in the hallway, trembling, while Alaya began to cry softly, her young mind unable to grasp the gravity of the situation. Inside the master bedroom, André stood over the lifeless bodies of Jasmine and Tyrone. The acrid smell of gunpowder hung in the air, mingling with the oppressive silence that followed the gunshots. His firearm slipped from his trembling hands and clattered to the floor. His breath came in shallow gasps as he stared at what he had done, the reality sinking in like a knife to the chest. The rage that had driven him moments ago evaporated, replaced by an overwhelming wave of regret and horror. The muffled cries of his children outside the door brought André back to his senses. He couldn't let them see this. He stepped into the hallway, closing the bedroom door behind him with a trembling hand. Malik stopped in his tracks, his face pale and stricken with fear. "Dad, what happened?" he stammered. André couldn't meet his son's eyes. His voice was low and hoarse as he said, "Go to your room. Take your brothers and sister. Now." Malik hesitated, sensing the gravity of his father's tone. "But, go." André barked, his voice cracking with a mix of authority and anguish. The children retreated, huddling together in Malik's room, their muffled cries filling the silence as André walked downstairs, his movements slow and deliberate. Once in the living room, André sank into the couch and pulled out his phone. His hands shook violently as he dialed 911. The operator answered with practiced calm, but André could barely find the words. "It's me, André," he said, his voice hollow. I just killed my wife and my brother, I'm sorry. I need the police." The operator began asking questions. Was he armed? Were there others in danger? But André didn't answer. He ended the call and sat in silence, his head in his hands. The weight of what he had done pressed down on him like a crushing burden. The distant sound of sirens grew louder with each passing second, a stark reminder that his life was about to change forever. When the police arrived, André didn't resist. He walked to the front door as the officers approached, their weapons drawn. "I'm unarmed," he said, raising his hands. His voice was devoid of emotion, his eyes glassy and unfocused. The officers handcuffed him and led him out of the house. As they escorted him to the patrol car, Andre glanced up at the window, where Malik stood, watching in silence, his face pressed against the glass. The investigation was straightforward. The crime scene provided clear evidence of what had occurred. Andre's service firearm, discarded on the floor, matched the bull. His 911 call left no room for doubt about his guilt. While the police refrained from directly involving the children in the investigation, the trauma they had endured was impossible to ignore. Hearing the gunshots, witnessing their father's state after the crime, and being present in a house where such violence had occurred left psychological scars that couldn't be undone. In addition to being charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, Andre was also charged with 4 counts of child abuse. The prosecution argued that his actions had inflicted severe emotional harm on his children, placing them in a situation that no child should ever have to endure. By committing the murders in the family home, knowing the children were present, Andre had demonstrated a reckless disregard for their well-being. The charges reflected the irreversible impact his decisions had on Malik, Jaden, Cameron, and Aliyah, who would carry the weight of that night for the rest of their lives. Andre was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 4 counts of child abuse. The prosecution painted him as a man who allowed his anger and jealousy to consume him, turning a betrayal into a calculated act of violence that devastated his family. They emphasized his position as a sheriff, arguing that his training and role in the community made his actions all the more egregious. The defense, however, portrayed Andre as a man pushed to the brink, whose crime was born of unimaginable betrayal rather than premeditated malice. Despite the legal arguments, Andre knew he had no defense for what he had done. He didn't fight the charges, accepting the weight of his guilt without protest. The case was a spectacle, drawing widespread media attention, but Andre remained stoic throughout. For him, the trial and the inevitable sentence were secondary to the unbearable loss of his family, the life he had built, the trust he had cherished, all reduced to ashes by his own actions. Andre was convicted on both counts of first-degree murder and 4 counts of child abuse, receiving a life sentence without the possibility of parole. The judge's words during sentencing were stern yet tinged with sorrow. While the betrayal you suffered is undeniable, the law cannot excuse the choices you made in response. You took 2 lives, and in doing so, shattered the lives of your children and your community. As Andre was led away in handcuffs, his thoughts turned to his children. He knew they would carry the burden of his actions for the rest of their lives. His only hope, though distant and unlikely, was that one day they might find it in their hearts to forgive him, even as he struggled to forgive himself. This case is a devastating reminder of the cost of betrayal and the irreversible consequences of unchecked rage. What started as a marriage built on love and trust spiraled into heartbreak, violence, and unimaginable tragedy. At its heart lies a question we must all grapple with. Could honesty and transparency have prevented this devastating outcome, or was the betrayal so deep, so interwoven into their lives, that destruction was inevitable? Andre Harris's story is one of love and loyalty twisted by deceit and rage. A respected sheriff, a father, a man devoted to his family, was driven to commit an unthinkable act when the truth unraveled before him. But was his crime born of temporary insanity, a single moment of blinding fury? Or was it the ultimate betrayal, the years of secrets and lies, festering, compounding, until there was no way forward but violence? What do you think? Was Andre a victim of his emotions, pushed to the brink by an unimaginable betrayal, or does the blame lie squarely on his shoulders? And how much responsibility falls on Jasmine and Tyrone for keeping their devastating secret for so long, knowing it could one day tear the family apart? If this story shocked you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Shocking True Crime Stories. Stay tuned for more cases that delve into the darkest corners of human relationships and explore the devastating consequences of secrets, lies, and betrayal. Until next time, stay safe out there.